The GOP-led House forms their committees to investigate Biden. A big discovery has been made. Joe Biden was in possession of classified documents that he obtained while he was Obama's vice president. And these documents were found at his private office in Washington, D.C. And it's really odd. If you watch the corporate media, there's barely mention of it. No one's talking about indictments or prison time or investigations or being disqualified from running for president again. All those headlines we saw when Mar-a-Lago was raided are nowhere to be found now that Joe Biden was caught red-handed with classified documents in his possession that were, by the way, regarding Iran and Ukraine and China. Now, Biden is in Mexico right now, meeting with the Canadian and Mexican presidents. And reporters did try to get a comment from him on this scandal several times. This is one of those times.
Years, but I never.
All right, guys, let's head out. TV, we can start moving. Thanks, guys.
Your audio.
This goes on. And there was another questioning period a little later. And also no comment, just this big grin. Somebody told old Joe, just grin when the press asks you about the classified documents. The word classified means what, Joe? That's what happened there. Now, back when Biden did his softball interview over on 60 Minutes, they asked him about the documents found at Mar-a-Lago. Watch this.
When you saw the photograph of the top secret documents laid out on the floor at Mar-a-Lago, what did you think to yourself, looking at that image?
How that could possibly happen, how anyone could be that irresponsible.
How anyone could be that irresponsible, Biden says. And at that same time, he had classified documents stashed in his private office in D.C., and you won't even believe what's in them. So much more self-serving. Biden even brought MSNBC reporters into his private office a few years ago and talked about how he has no access to classified documents. You can't make this stuff up.
In 2018, Joe Biden addressed his access to classified information in an interview with me. This was in the context of Russia's interference in U.S. elections, and it was in that office, the Penn Biden Center.
I don't have access to classified information anymore. I don't get briefed every morning by the agency, as I did for 8 years.
Although, you know, they were sitting at just feet from where he was storing the classified documents about Ukraine and Iran. Now, kudos to MSNBC for re-airing that footage, although I'm sure that some great internet sleuths would have found it soon anyway. I think they were just trying to get out ahead of it. But now the corporate media is doing the covering up for Joe Biden. The Washington Post laid out the argument that Trump's classified documents and Biden's are not the same. They say Trump's documents are a much bigger deal than Biden's, but they leave out the most important part of the story. Biden did not have the authority that Trump had to declassify to begin with. Now, when Joe Biden removed the classified documents from the White House and took them to his office, he was vice president. And vice president does not have authority to declassify documents unless he happened to be the original person who was the classifier of said documents. And we know that the vice president did not have the authority to declassify these documents because at least one was marked SCI, sensitive compartmented information is what SCI stands for. It's used for highly sensitive information obtained from only intelligence sources. Now, in Trump's case, we know that the president is the one and final authority on all classification because the president is the head of the executive branch. We, the people, give the president that authority. So if Trump wanted to walk out of the White House with all the documents about JFK assassination and toss them right into the wind, that would have been his right as the president of the United States to do. The vice president does not have that authority. This is the major defining factor. But another way this is not the same at all as Mar-a-Lago is that the Secret Service guards Mar-a-Lago 24/7. It is a secure facility, so these documents were being kept in a secure, constantly guarded by the Secret Service and additional private security facility. Biden's private office was never guarded by Secret Service, especially during his time as a private citizen after he left the White House. Also, oddly, this private office was paid for by the University of Pennsylvania. Biden was made an honorary professor there, and they gave him a boatload of cash just to have this little swanky office there. So who knows what they got in return for this, right? But Biden got a fancy free office in Washington, D.C., funded by an Ivy League school. And Biden had no actual duties at the university. Hillary Clinton was asked about this. Here's what she said.
No one is above the law.
Yep.
And the rule of law in a democracy, has to be our standard.
Oh, wait, that was Hillary talking about President Trump, right? We haven't yet heard whether she thinks Biden is above the law, but my guess is she thinks they both are, meaning her and Biden, definitely not Trump. Another odd part of this story is that these documents were found in Biden's office before the midterm elections, but this was kept quiet until now. But I'm sure that's just a coincidence, right? You agree with that, right? Nothing to see here. Move along. Oh, my goodness. This is so crazy. One additional part of this that I just can't believe is what the documents revealed inside of them. But we're going to get to that because here to react to all of this is the attorney for President Trump, Alina Habba. Alina, great to have you back on the show. Alina, the corporate media says President Trump's classified documents are a much bigger threat than the Bidens. They say it's not even close. It's really the opposite, isn't it? Because Joe Biden has no business walking out of the White House with classified documents as vice president. President Trump had all authority to declassify and take the documents he pleased. And Biden is the one who obviously broke the law here. But no one is saying this, Alina. Why?
Why? Because he's a Democrat. Where is the raid, Gina? Where's the raid? Where's the crisis? Where is the urgency that now that we know that he had classified documents that his attorney found in November and never turned over until January, where is this urgency? We now see the double standard that is this country, and this is exactly why we should be afraid, okay? Joe Biden was a vice president. He had absolutely no authority, as you've stated, to declassify documents. So he took these documents to his think tank. Now, one thing you didn't mention, which I think is incredibly relevant, is that the think tank was funded by China. They got over $50 million from China. So we now have a place that is funded by the Chinese government that is now being access to private documents for the United States government. That's a little bit different than Mar-a-Lago, where Secret Service protects the documents, where we padlocked them when the DOJ asked us, where we doubled down, where we secured everything, and we had to go through intense scrutiny over months. It's such a double standard, it's disgusting. And you know what? I'm glad you played the clip of Hillary Clinton saying that no one is above the law. She must have gotten that from my friend Letitia James in New York. Guess what, Joe Biden? You're not above the law. And I want to see what they do to him.